Well, I think I'm done with most of the sanding. I've got a little bit more, but I'm going to use a two-part epoxy primer, so I don't need to get this down to bare metal. I'll use that two-part epoxy. I just hand sanded all this. Didn't take me too long, a couple hours. But yeah, I'll use an epoxy primer. That stops all corrosion, prevents moisture from getting inside, and of course magnesium, you got to do that. But the next step will be cleaning this with a very caustic cleaner. They have some concentrated super strength mean green, and then they also have some other stuff that's even maybe stronger than that. But you know, wear the gloves. It's pretty caustic, and scrub it down with a scrub brush on everything, and then rinse it real good a couple of times and let it air dry for a while, and that'll pull the grease out of the magnesium, which is pretty porous. So after I get the epoxy primer done, the cleaner and then the epoxy primer, I'll use some filler primer for little scratches. I've got a few on the front of this fuel tank and a few on this. Epoxy primer will fill some of that, but not all of it. But I'll use a filler primer on that, and I only use that filler primer on places that need it. I won't prime everything. Epoxy primer will be fine. I am going to use a two-part epoxy red on this. I thought about using lacquer, but you know, it's just really inconvenient for small parts to buy as much lacquer as I would have to mix up. Well, I'd have to buy a quart of the lacquer, a quart of the reducer, a quart of the activator, whatever. But I'd rather buy the two-part epoxy than to go with the lacquer. I think it'll be fine. I think the most important stage is the two-part epoxy primer, because that it will bond to the magnesium, and the two-part epoxy top coat will bond to that real good. So once I get the red on, and I've got to do the green around here, and the green on the starter recoil, and the green on the handlebar. I think that's all that gets the green. And then the decals. But I mean, to tell you, this thing is a pretty clean old saw. I mean, it is pretty clean. So I'm pretty stoked about having it. Anybody that has this type of saw that has that crankcase vacuum ventilation that goes to the carb, that is really a hard hose to find. I got a hose that's a clear hose, and I had to stick a smaller clear hose in it to keep it from kinking. And while I've got this torn apart, I will try to find another black hose that will fit on there. But that size is just real oddball, and I didn't want the hose that was on here before was short, and probably wasn't short. It probably just pushed down way down here. I didn't see it, and I ended up cutting it to get it off because the other end was flared out a lot. And some of these hoses have flared ends, and I think you could flare those with a heat gun and something pressed inside there, and I might actually do that on this. If I find one that's a little small, I might try to use my heat gun and a rod to flare out the ends. We'll see how it goes. I guess that'll be it. I guess I got some of the paint down, sand and paint down there, didn't I? Yep.